Hello and welcome back to the channel and what will eventually be my little library nook once Babe gets the shelves built, which will probably be a while because we're still settling into the house. But right now it's home for all of the clothes we have not put away from our trip that was over a week ago. No worries, it's okay. Closets aren't even organized. There's stuff all over the floor there too. All of my books that will eventually be in my library are currently sitting in that corner. We're no makeup, we're living life. I've realized that if I'm going to actually show up on this channel, I can't always be put together because the majority of my days, I'm not. And so I'm just gonna show up as I am. But what I wanted to share is my new book came in, Reclaim the Stars, and I can't wait to share it with you once I read it. It's a wonderful anthology, 17 different stories of magic and wonder in Latin America, and I'm just excited to dive in. It'll actually be my first anthology that I've read, at least since I was a kid, so I'm excited. But that is one of the things I want to add to this channel is book reviews, and I have a lot on our old channel. Well, it's still an ongoing channel, but the majority of the audience over there is all male, and they're there for the DIYs, which has basically become what that channel is mostly now because it's just RV life and all the repairs we've made to the RV, which is why I started this new channel. And so I'm slowly going to start bringing those book reviews that I've already done on that channel over to this one. And so that's what today's video is. I am sharing a book review that I had actually done live and am going to jump back into on this channel at some point, but it is my live book review from some books I read in 2021, and I hope you enjoy. If you read any of them, let me know what your thoughts were.
I love sharing book chats and hearing your thoughts on reads that we've both enjoyed. So I will go ahead and get started. And this one, the Hearts Invisible Furies, my sister-in-law had been recommending that I read this for a long time, and I just didn't. I wasn't ready because I knew it was going to be heavy, and it is, but it is also so good. So good. I'll go ahead and read the synopsis and then share some of my thoughts. But it starts with, Cyril Avery is not a real Avery, or at least that's what his adoptive parents tell him, and he never will be. But if he isn't a real Avery, then who is he? Born out of wedlock to a teenage girl cast out from her rural Irish community and adopted by a well-to-do, if eccentric, Dublin couple via the intervention of a hunchback redemptorist nun, Cyril is adrift in the world, anchored only tenuously by his close friendship with the infinitely more glamorous and dangerous Julian Woodby. At the mercy of fortune and coincidence, he will spend a lifetime coming to know himself and where he came from, and over his many years will struggle to discover an identity, a home, a country, and much more. So this book takes you from, I think it starts in the 1940s, yes. So starting in the 1940s, it takes you from the early mention of the character that is his mother, his biological mother, and her being cast out by her community in Ireland. And it is just a true story of redemption and coming to know yourself. It centers a lot around what it's like to be a member of the gay community in Ireland during the 1940s, 50s, moving forward to current times. There's also the AIDS crisis is a part of it. So just know that there are triggers in here. If assault on members of the gay community is hard for you to swallow, just what they've walked through and all of that, it is in here and prevalent, but the redemption that comes out of Cyril getting to kind of know himself and grow into being someone who is proud of who he is and figuring out his story, his past, and how that plays into every aspect of his life It's really, really good. It wrecked me a lot because there are just a lot of moments in there that you're like, what is happening? And you almost find yourself in some ways not mad at Cyril, or I did anyways, but I obviously can never understand what it's like to be him. And I don't think I'm giving anything away. You find out pretty early on that he's gay, and how that plays a huge part in his story, especially in Ireland during that time. And I will never understand what it would be like to have to walk through that. But there are so many times that you want to just hug him and also just be like, what are you doing? So just in terms of the reasons he keeps secrets and is unable to kind of come to terms with who he is. And so it's just a really good book. Let me see, I had a quote in here that I loved, and I did borrow this book from my sister-in-law. So Carrie, I promise I did not dog ear your book. I'm not a dog earer, but just one tiny little corner that you wouldn't even know I held down. So let me see. This is the quote that I found that really stuck out to me. Stuck out to me. And it says, it's as if she understood completely the condition of loneliness and how it undermines us all, forcing us to make choices that we know are wrong for us. It was just kind of a way to sum up a lot of what happens and choices that are made throughout the story, and just a really good one. So if you have never read the Hearts Invisible Furies, I would definitely recommend it, but make sure you are ready for kind of hard subject matter and just some heart-wrenching moments. Definitely has to be a book you are prepared for. So if you're wanting something light, not this. Now, on the flip side, if you are wanting something light, I don't read light books very often unless they're chosen for a book club book, or I just really need some fluff. But I ended up reading Queen Bee by Dorothea Benton Frank. I don't usually gravitate towards her as an author. Her writing style is just different from what I usually enjoy. And I had the same problem with this book at the beginning, but I ended up really liking it and will actually probably keep it, which I don't keep books often. I pass them on, I share them, but I will probably keep this book only because I love bees and I love any books that are bee related. Someday I would like to be a beekeeper in my own backyard, not a big beekeeper, just a little beekeeper and have my own honey. So I do like to read any books that have bee-related themes. Love The Secret Life of Bees. And this one, it took me a while to get into, but after that, I just think I ended up finishing it in a day because I liked it so much. I really you find yourself growing to love, look how cute this is. Look at all the bees. But you find yourself growing to love the main character. Her name is Holly, and the synopsis of this one is beekeeper Holly McNee Jensen quietly lives in a world of her own on Sullivan's Island, tending her hives and working at the local island library. Holly calls her mother the queen bee because she's a demanding hulk of a woman. Her mother might be a devoted hypochondriac, but that doesn't stop her from tormenting Holly. To escape the drama, Holly's sister Leslie married and moved away, wanting little to do with island life. Holly's escape is to submerge herself in the lives of the two young boys next door and their widowed father, Archie. Her world is upended when the more flamboyant Leslie returns and both sisters, polar opposite, fixate on what's happening in their neighbor's home. Is Archie really in love with that awful, cold-hearted woman? If Archie marries her, what will become of his little boys? Restless Leslie is desperate for validation after her imploded marriage, squandering her favors on any and all takers. Their mother ups her game in an uproarious and theatrical downward spiral. Scandalized Holly is talking to her honeybees a mile a minute as though they'll give her a solution to all the chaos. Maybe they will. So Queen Bee, I loved it because at the beginning of each chapter, there are all these fun little quotes about bees and what we can learn from bees, different facts about bees. And now I can't get to the beginning of a chapter, but this one's just a funny little joke. It says, this one says, "I've got another great bee quote for you," Archie said. "Hope is the only bee that makes honey without flowers." I said, "Who said that?" "Robert Greene Ingersoll, known as the Great Agnostic, born 1833, died in 1899. He was an idiot. Any beekeeper will tell you there's a God." So just cute, fun little bee quotes, bee facts, and Holly's story is just really sweet, but also hysterical. Her mother is hilarious. She ends up, well, I don't want to give it away, but she ends up visiting Vegas, and there's drag queens involved and all kinds of fun, just happy, lighthearted moments. There's also some heavy stuff in here, but it's done in a way that it's still kind of a fluff book, I would call it. Holly talks to her bees, and she thinks her bees are helping her with situations that she's going through. And in some ways they are, depending on how you want to look at it. And you can determine for yourself if you think bees can understand people. But they seem to understand Holly anyways. So Queen Bee is definitely just a fun book to have if you need something light and fun and you like bees. So that's another good one. Oh, and do you like bees? Let me know either in the chat, or if you're watching this afterwards, let me know in the comments. I will link all of these books below. Also, I shared a link to some of my favorite reads just in general as I continue to do these. Some months I get through 5 or 6 books. Other months I get through 2 books. And those months I will probably bring in some of my tried and true favorites to share with you guys, just because I won't have enough books to kind of go through. Yes, Miss Kathy, I know we both love bees. And Miss Kathy is very, very good with knowing all things bees. I remember learning a really cool bee fact from her, which is somewhat sad, but somewhat also really cool, that bees, if you have joint pain, can be helpful. Bee stings actually really help with issues with joints and things like that, because if you let them sting you, it is like sending cortisol, I think, to that area. So it's kind of a somewhat holistic way to help treat pain. But obviously, if a bee stings you, sadly, they die. So you have to tell them, thank you for helping me, and I love you, little bee. And yes, because if you read The Secret Life of Bees, you will know that no life-loving bee will ever want to sting you. So as long as you stay calm around bees and they know that you are not a threat to them, you can literally hold them in your hand. I got it right. Yay. You can literally hold them in your hand. I have done it many times. I love it. It's really cool for me to just go. I love anywhere there are beehives. I get super fascinated by it. And so I'll just go and stand and watch them for hours, just kind of working, going in and out. And sometimes they'll land on you and it's fine. Now, wasps and other things like that, no, don't let them land on you. Run away, run away. Actually, don't run away because wasps will chase you. But bees, just, they're fine. Let them land on you and it's okay. But someday I plan to, like I said, have my own bees and get my own honey. And I don't plan to wear any bee suit, just a bee head, the little bee thing on my head, just because I don't want to get stung on the face, because stings will happen. But usually, as long as you're calm, you can just lift the comb right out and they won't bother you. So on to another book that I picked up here at my mom's because I had finished reading, oh gosh, I don't even remember what I was reading before this one. Oh, The Hearts Invisible Furies was first. Then I needed something to read, and the only other thing I had was another kind of hard heart stuff book. And so I wanted something a little lighter, but not super light. And so thankfully Mom had this one, and it is more of a suspenseful, not thriller necessarily, but there is a trigger in here. So if domestic violence is a trigger for you, I would not recommend this book. There is domestic violence in it, a good bit actually. And so if that's something that's hard for you to read, I would just recommend skipping this. But Never Let You Go is, the synopsis is 11 years ago, Lindsay Nash escaped into the night with her young daughter and left an abusive relationship. Her ex-husband, Andrew, was sent to jail, and Lindsay started over with a new life. Now, Lindsay is older and wiser, with her own business and a teenage daughter who needs her more than ever. When Andrew is finally released from prison, Lindsay believes she has cut all ties and left the past behind her, but she gets the sense that someone is watching her, tracking her every move. Her new boyfriend is threatened, her home is invaded, and her daughter is shadowed. Lindsay is convinced it's her ex-husband, even though he claims he's a different person. But has he really changed? Is the one who wants her dead closer to home than she thought? So this book was really good in terms of just a somewhat fast-paced book that's also not fluff, but also not really, really heavy heart stuff. The domestic violence is in there, but it's more so kind of just heart grabbing, and a little scary, as opposed to just like that heart wrenching. It's done in a way that it is written in a way that it's not super like gut punch, but it's definitely prevalent. It takes place more so now that they've moved away. Her daughter's a teenager now, trying to figure out her own story, ends up with a boyfriend who the mom is somewhat wary of. There's a connection between the mom and the boyfriend because the mom cleans house for, I love reading. It can be so hard to find time to read, but I really just make a priority out of it every morning, even if it's just 15 minutes. My husband thinks I'm funny because I set my alarm while I eat breakfast for literally 14 minutes and 47 seconds. That is how long I give myself to read before I have to start work for the day. And so I do the 47 seconds so that if the timer goes off and I'm in a really good spot, even if I read for 5 more minutes, I've only read for 20 minutes, and then I start my work day. And so I just do that during breakfast. And sometimes I will try and read at night, but oftentimes if I do that, if the book is really good, I'll be up until 2 a.m. And so I just end up scrolling my phone, which also keeps me up sometimes until not 2 a.m., but midnight. So maybe I should just read at night instead of being on my phone. Probably be better, but here we are. Yes, I hope you can, because there are really some just wonderful, wonderful books out there. I am obviously much more of a fiction reader, but there are also some great learning books and all of that. But yes, fiction is my jam. I've tried like self-help or motivational books, and I just can't do it. But Never Let You Go, this one was interesting to me because I thought I knew what was going to happen. And then I was like, no, I'm wrong. And usually I know a book pretty early on. It's just a thing I have. I try not to guess, but I always guess, and I'm usually always right. And I was right for a brief moment, and then I was like, no, I'm wrong. And I was right. But for a long time, I believed the opposite of what I thought originally. And so I would like to say that this book kind of caught me somewhat unawares, and that takes a lot for that to happen. So she did a really good job kind of with the character development in this and giving twists and turns that make you not sure about who is doing what and what is happening. So I would definitely recommend Never Let You Go if you like just kind of a suspenseful story. But again, if domestic violence is something that's just really hard for you to read, it's something that you can't do not read this book. But outside of that, this one. Faithful by Alice Hoffman. Alice Hoffman is the author of Practical Magic, and I cannot remember her other magic book. She has another book that's also part of the Practical Magic stories, and I read both of them. One of them I really liked. One of them was harder for me to get into, and I can't remember now which one was the harder one to get into. I think I actually might have had a harder time with Practical Magic only because I watched the movie and love the movie. Okay. Faithful by Alice Hoffman is not like Practical Magic. There's no magic really in here other than there are people that believe that if they go and see a girl who's in a coma and kind of bedridden, they will be healed. But it's more so just something they're thinking that's not a prevalent part of the story. Faithful is about a girl named Shelby. So it's Shelby Richmond is an ordinary girl until one night an extraordinary tragedy changes her fate. Her best friend's future is destroyed in an accident, while Shelby walks away without a scratch, although she's plagued by heartbreak and guilt. Then the first anonymous postcard arrives. Say something. With support from her dedicated mother, Shelby moves to New York City, where the people she meets, flogged, scared, loving, mysterious, help her learn to forgive herself. As more postcards arrive, do something, love something, the world opens to Shelby. Guided by her best friend, a sassy single mother of 3, her good-hearted boyfriend who she wishes could be the one, and the dark angel who's been following her since that fateful night, Shelby realizes that saving others can help save herself. In the end, Shelby ultimately can bravely face the future. And the bottom of it says that for anyone who's ever been a hurt teenager, for every mother of a daughter who has lost her way, Faithful is a gorgeous roadmap of family, faith, and forgiveness. And it truly is all of those things. So Faithful, it was a slower story, but I found myself devouring it. I usually like a little more fast-paced movement, and Faithful just was a lot more about like Shelby's inner struggle with the accident that left her friend in a coma and her free to kind of live her life. She spends the later part of her teenage years kind of a hermit in her parents' basement until she ultimately ends up moving to New York City. And it's a story of kind of finding yourself as an adult. I think even aside from the accident, I think moving on from teenagehood into whatever your college years are, and then ultimately becoming an adult is a lot about finding yourself, finding who you are, who you want to be. I think it's a never-ending process. And so coming to terms with kind of the life you live in high school, especially after something like a tragedy happening, and what that's going to shape you into as you grow into adulthood, this story is just a very heart-touching way to look at that. And it's written, it's shorter. It is, let's see. It is 250 something odd pages. So it's not super long, and it's just really, really sweet and really good. And if you need something that isn't necessarily fluff, but is also just a heart-touching story in between really, really hard stuff, I would say go with this one. There is, again, still some hard subject matter, but nothing that is super tough to swallow. It's just really, really sweet. And here is one of the quotes, now I've lost it, from this book that I really liked. This time, she doesn't stop him from doing anything. Maybe he was a monster once, and maybe she was too. Maybe the only thing they have in common is that they're survivors. But this is not the past. And it's just, again, another really pointed quote for this book in particular, because throughout the whole book, Shelby does kind of see herself as a monster. She shaves her hair. She believes that she really shouldn't be living the way she believes she shouldn't be living because her friend is in a coma, and she just can't see herself for who she is. And it's her coming to really begin to see that she's not a monster that she thinks she is. And it helps her see other people in ways that she never would have probably before the accident happened. And it's just a really, really good story. So I would definitely recommend Faithful if you are looking for something good to read and just eat up, because again, I found myself going through this really quickly because it was just so good for my heart and I liked it a lot.
That's it for these reviews, but there's more to come soon, so be sure to click subscribe. Thanks, and happy reading!